Dawson didn't sit there and call in to sit here and listen to us talk. I mean, he's in the studio. So I'm going to go ahead and get him into the studio, and let's get this rolling. Dawson, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Not too bad, not too bad. Before we jump into this, I want to give you an opportunity to, plug anything site-wise you want to plug, so social media-wise, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, whatever you use to interact with the fans, and then also any sponsors you want to throw out there, website, anything you want to throw out there before we jump into this.
Thank you. Rackley Roofing, Rackley War, Workdock, Tornado Development. Thank you guys for having me on here, by the way. It's really cool to be on here in the first place, so thank you.
We appreciate it.
Without a doubt, our pleasure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is one of the things we live for, one of the reasons why we've been doing this so long, so I'm glad to have you on here. 17 years old. So it sounds like you've come a long way. Let's see how far you've actually come. When did you start racing? At what age, and what got you into racing, Dawson?
Okay, so I started racing a year and a half ago now, actually. So, not too long ago. I'm pretty new to it, actually, according to some guys. Started racing legend cars. I got into racing because my dad started sponsoring a NASCAR truck 4 years ago now, Clay Greenfield. That's how I got into it. I didn't know anything about NASCAR before that. I had no idea any drivers. I think I watched the Daytona 500 once maybe, and a lot of Lightning McQueen, so that's the only thing I knew about racing. That's how I started, and then I got a simulator at home. I got it 3 years ago, and I played it nonstop and still play it every day, probably 5 or 6 hours a day at least, just practicing for, it's such a good tool to practice on. And the late models are on there now, so I got everything that I need.
Now, before I go on to the next question, I want to swing this to Chris's direction, just because they talked about this last week on their show, because Chris went and saw that new movie that came out, basically started off being a gamer and became a racer. I forget the name of the movie. So, Chris, I'm going to swing this to you for follow-up on it, since this is kind of where we were just at a week ago.
First of all, Dawson, I believe on Heat 3, I think it was, when Clay Greenfield was put into the truck on the Heat game, the NASCAR game, that was the first truck that I raced was that, I believe it was a yellow truck, correct? Clay Greenfield.
Yeah.
Anyway, I remember it. Yeah, I remember it being clearly on the Heat game. That was the first car that I drove, first truck that I drove. I thought the paint scheme was totally cool. Now, we did just go see Gran Turismo, and it was a story about a kid who got the ability, who had some driving ability. He got scored with some other players on the internet. It was kind of a deal with Nissan, and eventually got to drive a car and was pretty successful at it. Of course, now we have William Byron in the big leagues and all. How does that kind of inspire you, right? A late bloomer, obviously. Your father being involved in racing got you where you are now. Being a late bloomer, does that discourage you any? I mean, or just the practice hours, as long as you're getting seat time?
I kind of don't look at it like I'm starting late. I kind of just look at it like I got to try harder than a lot of people and just, put in the time and the work. But
right.
I started racing. I got mentors like William Byron and Josh Berry, and you just got to ask questions from guys like that. And I get the opportunity to meet those guys because my dad's involved in NASCAR, and Willie Allen. My dad and Willie Allen own the Rackley War, so I get to go to a lot of truck races all the time and meet a lot of new people,
okay.
And it teaches me a lot.
Right. So just being involved in the sport and being around the sport. Obviously, what were you getting into before racing come along? And I'll send it back to Mr. CJ Sports. What was occupying Dawson's time before racing?
I played many sports whenever I was younger. I played basketball, hockey. I never played football, but I played soccer. I played tons of sports, but, you know, I never really got into it. And then, you know, I just found my passion once you got involved in racing a couple of years ago, and I kind of just fell in love with it. You know, it's one of those things where you do it once and you're addicted to it. So I'm just, oh, yeah.
The bug got you.
Yeah.
Mr. C.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. CJ Sports.
How did the conversation go with your parents? Like, you got blinders on, you've never heard of NASCAR, never watched NASCAR, never watched NASCAR. Oh, well, my dad's it's part of NASCAR. I want to race all of a sudden. Dad, I want to go racing. Like, how does all of a sudden no interest to I want to go drive?
Okay, so Clay Greenfield also raced a truck at Nashville Fairgrounds a little bit because I live 30 minutes from Nashville Fairgrounds, just right outside of it. I used to go there, and I knew my dad and Willie Allen got connected because Willie raced at Nashville, and he's very successful there. And Willie's best friend there was Michael. It's crazy, Michael House, which races pro late models, and I used to race Michael House in iRacing a lot, and Michael got connected to Willie and told him that I'm pretty good on the sim, that he should, you know, put me in a real life car. And Willie actually traded a older late model for a legend car. And, you know, ever since then I met the Hornaday, Team Hornaday, and Ron and Candace and Joe. And, you know, that's basically how it went down. I got to race 50 races last year in the Legends.
Now, see that you drive Legend. You've driven the Legends car and the pro late model cars. What all have you driven, and which one have you felt most comfortable in?
That's a good question.
Okay, so all I've raced so far in my year and a half, I raced 50 Legend car races, 50 or 60 Legend car races last year, all over the country. I got to race in Vegas, New Hampshire. I raced all the nationals. I raced Boring out in Vegas. I raced all over the country in those cars, and you know I haven't ran those cars as much this year, but I think I have a couple races coming up in them. But now I'm racing pro late models for Rackley War, and I'm still pretty new to them. I actually just raced this weekend at Pensacola. It was a championship race. And I led all 96 laps and got past the 4 to go, so kind of sucks. But that's what I race right now.
Dawson, take me real quick to the new school of racing, right? So, you know, back in the day, you would jump in a late model. You'd start out your local track. You'd get a chance to get into a late model. Then, you know, you would try to attract some sponsor and get into a car. But that's not the way it's done anymore. You guys are being rooted at a very young age and defined and perfected. Take us to that school of racing, because the only way that you get educated in racing is by getting you – when you're beginning for next year, are you planning now for your next year's seat time? How did you plan to race 50 races? Was that at one time that you sat down, or were those opportunities given to you to be able to go and race 50 races? How does that exactly work, Dawson?
You know, it's just all my parents, my mom. You know, my mom takes me to every race all over the country, fly and just stay in a hotel. So I can't thank my mom. And you know, my dad gives me the opportunity to go race every race I'm in. So that's basically how it works. You know, racing, there's a lot more that goes into racing than just driving the car, too. It's, you know, interviews, and you got to work out, and there's so much stuff that goes into it that you wouldn't think. It's crazy. Like, yeah, it's a lot more than just racing. I like to say that racing is the easy part.
I think watching Cars 3, okay, this is what our audience knows. They watch Cars 3, and they see the simulator, and they see what Lightning McQueen has to go through, like on the treadmill and stuff. And then you watch Gran Turismo, the movie, and you see that these guys are pulled from being in the living rooms in a simulator to having to go out on a racetrack and actually experience what those G's are like, having the physical ability to be able to maintain. We just watched this weekend in Texas degrees of 132 degrees with some people's ice packs not working on their vest. you have to be a toned athlete in order to do this sport. That is part of the school of racing that I'm trying to get to, Dawson. That's the most intriguing part right now, I think, from the outsider's view, is what all it really does take to be this racer that you're trying to become.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The biggest thing that I've noticed is just, hydration. I drink so much water, before I race, and you got to be ready. I mean, a week prior, even just down waters before your races, and that will help you so much.
I live in Mississippi, so I mean, I think I can experience a race car just about any time from June through late August. It gets pretty hot down here, but even with that, when you're drinking water, is there a certain diet plan that you have to stick to? A 17-year-old typical diet is pizza and chicken tenders and hamburgers. What is your diet like, Dawson?
I don't really have a diet right now. I mainly just pound out waters, but, a diet is definitely one of those things that you definitely got to have once you get into, the NASCAR ranks and start running 400-lap races. You definitely should start worrying about that, which, that's something I'm starting to get into. I don't have a diet right now, but I'm definitely going to have to get one once I start racing those longer races and, just getting more, prone to that stuff so I can run longer races.
Well, and William Byron, I mean, we see how that kid, the growth that he's had. Not only has he developed these awesome skills as a race car driver, but he's developed as well in his physique. So when William Byron first showed up with Kyle Busch Motorsports, I think he weighed about $130, $140. Now you look at William, and he has put on the stock. He's put on the extra weight. And I believe that coincides with what you guys have to be able to maintain to drive these race cars these days. It's a very interesting thing, Dawson. I'll take it back to Mr. CJ Sports.
I'm obviously not as intelligent as my co-host here. This is probably why I have the question. He does not have this question. But I don't keep up with the Legend Series. And you talk about 50 races last season. How often do y'all run in the Legend Series? Like, my math, 50, 60 races, that's at least once a week. And I know we ain't running 24/7, 365. So how often do you guys run in the Legend Series?
Man, it's a lot. Like, I remember we flew we went and ran a whole dirt week last year in Missouri, and it was 4 days straight, and we raced every day at a different track. Like, it's wild how much you can actually race those things. Like, not even like we raced Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Like, I raced Monday, Tuesdays, or Thursdays and Fridays. I raced a whole Summer Shootout Series and a whole Thursday Thunder Series at Atlanta and Charlotte, and, that's 4 races in a week right there.
Yes, Mr. CJ Sports. I've just pulled it up. So starting on June 2nd, he raced, well, first of all, May 28th, he was at Hickory. On June 2nd, he was at Atlanta. June 8th, he was at Atlanta. June 9th, he was at Atlanta. June 15th, he was at Atlanta. June 16th, 22nd, 23rd, 30th, all at Atlanta Motor Speedway. So that was, 9 races in the month of June that he knocked out right there. And quite impressive, sir, quite impressive. 1 win, 23 features, 12 top 5s. I believe that was just in the Semi-Pro Legends.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So what was your goal for this year? Have you met your goals for this year? And what do you want to happen, or what are the goals for the rest of this year?
My goals this year were just, to get better every race that I'm in and just go out there and be competitive in the car that I'm in and, learn a ton. Like what I've already done this year is I've already learned so much. We still got a bit more races this year, but what I've learned so far this year is, more than I thought I was actually going to learn. I've succeeded more than I thought. I'm still competing for a track championship at National Fairgrounds. I think I'm 3rd in points there. I finished 2nd in points at Five Flag Speedway, so I'm locked into the Snowflake. I raced Montgomery.
Hold on. So how many different point championships or points things are you currently participating in?
Full time, I'm competing in 2.
Now, how hard is it to
Nashville.
keep up with and competing in 2 championships and doing these other events that you do outside of that? How hard is it to keep up with all that? It just seems like that's a lot to keep up with.
Oh yeah, it's a lot, but I love it. It's just something that if you love something enough, you'll do it. So I wish I could race every day, to be honest with you. I like racing that much.
Right.
And how is schooling working with all this?
I'm homeschooled. Actually just started, I think, a week and a half ago. But yeah, I've been homeschooled since 6th grade now, so pretty used to that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So tell us about that first win at Five Flags, man, in a late model. I mean, that had to have been pretty awesome.
Oh yeah, that was crazy. I have tons of seats there on the sim. Thousands of laps. I actually ran thousands of laps before that. Going there and I like that track so much. Kind of like the track is just perfect. Like I feel like it's built for me. It's so like technical and so much tire saving, and I love longer races. Like the first race we ran there, when I won, it went green flag to green flag, just 100 laps straight. So I could say my tire's good, and then we went back there and I won 2 in a row. I didn't win that one how I wanted because I finished second. And my teammate got DQ'd in the tech shed, but kind of just that one didn't really feel like a win, but the win's a win, I guess.
Yeah, a win's a win, and you'll forget about that later on. Unfortunately, it cost your buddy a place. I believe, was that September 23rd? Was that this past one where you were registered? It's showing on my race pass that you finished second.
Yeah. Oh, I finished. Okay. No, September. Okay, that was 2. Yeah, that was last weekend. I finished second. That's the one I led almost every lap, and then there was a late race caution in it, and I got passed with 4 to go.
Dawson, you've had a year and a half. I'm sorry, Mr. CJ Sports. Go ahead.
Oh, you got. Well, I was going to ask you, and then you can ask this question, but just back to that leading 96 laps. Which would you rather have? Just a bad day altogether, or would you rather lead 96 laps and then get passed with 4 laps left and lose at the end of the race?
Definitely. I'd still, leading laps is every lap that you lead, I say that you learn something new. So definitely leading all those laps, I definitely just learned. That will help you for tire saving. I'm still learning how to do that and getting better at it. So I definitely would rather lead 96 laps.
Yeah, and then late model racing, when you go 90 laps without a caution, you've got guys who, they started their strategy, they laid back, they're 5-6 seconds back, Mr. CJ Sports. Next thing you know, you're closing down 10 laps to go. That 5, 6, 7 second gap is now down to a half a second, right? And now you don't know what you've got left. So as long, you learn the most when you're in first, but I believe if you're in first or second, you're tremendously, making that notebook of what's working for you and what may not be working for you. I think when you're out front, it's more of the cautionary. You don't want to you don't want to push it too hard. You got, late model asphalt racing or concrete racing is so much different than most racing that we're all used to because it is about tire management. And I think that's a huge factor for Dawson to show up at Five Flags Speedway for the first time in a late model and get a win shows the preparation that he has had behind that wheel of that simulator. It would just be unheard of 10 years ago for somebody to show up at that style of racetrack and not burn the rubber off in the first 15, 20 laps.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Five Flags is one of those places where I think Five Flags is one of those tracks that is the worst. It's the worst tire saving track that I've ever raced on easily. So
right.
I feel like iRacing taught me how to tire save too.
Right. I agree. I can see that. Okay, Mr. CJ Sports, you want to go ahead? First of all, my last question for the evening, and I know Mr. CJ Sports will help finish this out. You've been in a year and a half now. You've had the high of highs and the low of low. If you can just give that real quick, man. What was your highest high and your lowest of low?
I'd say my highest of high is probably winning at the Bull Ring. I won the double feature there. That was my first win actually ever. I went out to Vegas and won the 2 races there in the Legend car. Definitely the highest of high. And then the worst one, I qualified 4th at North Wilkesboro this year and got wrecked on the first lap of the race, and that's definitely the lowest of the list.
Did you get a lot of practice time on North Wilkesboro before the race?
Not actually like in real life, but I ran tons of laps on the sim. I know we got to practice the day before a little bit, but overall we didn't get a lot of practice time there, mainly just the sim.
I just curious, what was it like driving on one of NASCAR's most historic tracks? Like the whole time I lived in North Carolina for 20-something years, that track was never running. I'm kind of upset that I moved back to Ohio and they finally got it running. I got to go to Rockingham. I got to go to a couple of other tracks that they've brought back, but Wilkesboro was not one of them. What was it like to run at a track with such history?
It's crazy. Like, just the whole week was crazy there. Just how many fans showed up. I've never been in an event like that before. So, it was crazy just the whole week in general. I got to stay and watch the truck race and the super late models. And I got to watch tons of stuff. So, I learned a whole lot that weekend. Actually, another track they raced at National Fairgrounds is, I think they're very similar just with the driving type. And, they're the same size track. So, I felt we had a very same setup at National Fairgrounds as North Wilkesboro, so I kind of felt like once we straight got into the car, I felt good about it. So
yeah, like I said, I spent 20-something years in North Carolina. I drove past the North Wilkesboro Speedway many times. Always wishing it would open, and I always told myself if it opened up before I knew I was moving back or before I did move back that I would always go. Just like Rockingham, I didn't realize I worked in a city called Southern Pines. It's literally 15, 20 minutes up the road from Rockingham. I lived probably 20, 30 minutes the opposite direction, so it was about an hour drive or so. The first year that they reopened the Rockingham, I went to that race. I watched Casey Kane win it, the number 4 truck. I missed the second year, so I love the history. I love it when they're able to bring back some of these tracks. If it's not for the Cup guys, it's for the lowest series guys, you guys that are still coming up through the ranks and get to race on some history and learn some of these tracks and learn a little bit more about NASCAR. My final question before I get you out of here is, what are the plans for next year? Do we have plans already wrote out for next year? Is there any calls been made for next year, or is it all that's just still up in the air?
Yeah, for sure. My goal right now is to go race full-time super late models next year. Maybe get into some ARCA or truck stuff next year. That's the goal. Just race full-time supers and finish out this year in the pro late models and maybe get some experience.
Go win the Snowball Derby.
Supers. Heck yeah, that's it. That's the goal right there.
Go win the Snowball Derby. He's already got a provisional, Mr. CJ Sports. That's what he said. He's locked in because of his second place championship run down at Five Flags. So I mean, if this kid puts himself in a position and wins the biggest race of the late model schedule, I tell you what, that'll give him a fast track for sure. Hey, one quick question. I know I said I was done, but I just got to think about it. Is there any inspiration to drive a dirt car?
Oh, tons, dude. I want to get in one so bad. If I ever get the opportunity
cool.
I'll definitely take it. I ran Dirt Legends last year. I was pretty good in those cars, but I really want to get into full stock or a full size dirt car. I want to get into a dirt late model or something. I watched all the races and they look so fun, but hopefully I get an opportunity to get in one someday.
Would you say no to a sprint car?
I'd love to go get in a sprint car. That'd be pretty interesting.
As long as it's got 4 wheels, I get in it, dang on it.
Yeah.
All right.
Dawson,
Good job, Dawson.
I want to thank you for coming on. It's been fun. I've really enjoyed myself tonight. Before we get you out of here, I want to give you an opportunity one more time to go ahead and plug social media, your guys' team site, website, whatever the case, whatever which way you want to point everybody, and then also throw out your sponsors real quick.
Yeah, Rackley Roofing, Rackley Warsaw Tornado Development, and just everybody else that helps out. Thank you guys for having me on here. Hopefully I can come on here again. Hopefully get an opportunity. But thank you guys.
Most definitely. Would love to get you back on. Hopefully we get you back on maybe at the end of the season, see how everything finished, see if we got plans rolled out for next year, and just get a chance to get to know you even more, Dawson. But thank you for your time. We'll definitely keep in touch. We'll definitely get you back. Good luck on the rest of the year, and we'll talk to you soon.